Revealed, an unexpected call at Christmas dinner led me to an incredible life-changing discovery. The laughter echoed like the gentle chiming of bells, filling the cozy, wood-paneled home that stood proudly against the snowy backdrop of Maplewood. Jake, a 30-something mechanic with grease-stained hands and a heart full of love, stood in the kitchen, breathing in the rich aroma of Grandma's famous pot roast. Today was more than just Christmas dinner, it was tradition, a celebration of family, a moment to gather and cherish. But beneath his cheerful smile lay shadows of worry over due bills, his aging parents' declining health, and a haunting chill that seemed to freeze his hopes. As they sat around the worn dining table adorned with flickering candles and fresh pine, the warmth of his family enveloped him like a familiar blanket. They sang carols, voices blending with the crackling fire, infusing the room with joy. Just as Jake was about to suggest another round of singing, his phone buzzed violently against the table, slicing through the merriment. He hesitated, his heart racing as he answered the call, a sense of foreboding washing over him. "Jake, it's about the farm," the voice on the other end launched a bombshell that shattered the jolly spirit. He learned he was the sole heir to a legacy, a farm that had once thrived under the care of his ancestors but now teetered on the edge of financial ruin. The weight of generational hopes pressed down on him. It wasn't just about land, it represented family history, tradition, and unfulfilled dreams. Jake's heart tightened as he shared the news with his family. Gasps echoed, stunned silences filled the gaps, and suddenly, the festive atmosphere morphed into a battleground. The table, once a symbol of unity, became divided. Some family members saw a chance to settle their old scores with Davis, his childhood neighbor, who had long coveted the land's failure. Others were quick to defend Jake, pushing for healing over vengeance. Voices rose, emotions flared, laughter turned to anger, and hope wrestled with despair. What does it mean to preserve a legacy? Jake wondered, feeling the pressure mount in his chest with every escalating word. Davis had always been a sour note in the community choir, and now he threatened to turn this dinner into a dirge. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. In the storm of emotions, Jake's resolve crystallized. This could be his chance not just to save the farm but to orchestrate a reconciliation, to bind the family tighter than the past ever could. He envisioned a fundraiser, a community effort to breathe new life into the farm. Faces that once turned away slowly began to nod in tentative agreement, and with them came hopeful allies. Yet lurking in the shadows was Davis, a storm brewing in his eyes, ready to lash out against any signs of Jake's success. Just as Jake prepared for the fundraiser's most critical night, an anonymous text buzzed on his phone. An ominous warning of betrayal awaited him. His heart raced. Was there a loose thread in the tapestry of support he thought he had woven? The night of hope now trembled with uncertainty. What did he risk losing in the pursuit of saving his family's legacy? The answers danced like snowflakes, delicate yet potentially devastating, inviting chaos into his world when all he craved was unity. The days leading up to the fundraiser blurred together for Jake. Each morning, he awoke to the weight of expectation pressing down on him like the thick layers of snow outside. He threw himself into preparations, his mind a whirlwind of tasks from securing donations to organizing volunteers. But with every phone call, every door knocked upon, whispers of doubt crept in. What if no one showed up? What if Davis had woven a web of deceit that would unravel it all? The night of the fundraiser arrived, cold but clear. Twinkling lights adorned the newly decorated barn, transforming it into a magical space filled with laughter and hope. An array of dishes lined the table's potato salad, pies cooling on the windowsills, the sweet scent of cocoa wafting through the air. This was it. This was the moment he had envisioned, a chance to unite the community and breathe life back into the farm. As guests began to arrive, Jake put on a brave face. Families he'd grown up with filtered in, some carrying casseroles, others clutching bags of cash, an act of solidarity and shared history. All their smiles did wonders for his spirits, bolstering his resolve. But lurking at the edges of the light, Jake caught sight of a familiar, darker figure. Davis stood in the shadows, his expression a blend of disdain and amusement. "Hope you're ready for a surprise, Jake," Davis called out, his voice cutting through the revelry like ice slicing through warm air. A wave of nervous energy rippled through the crowd. Eyes turned, conversations halted. Jake felt bile rise in his throat. What did he mean? "Let us stay focused on the cause, shall we?" Jake forced a smile, though it felt strained. He could feel heat creeping into his cheeks, fueled by humiliation. Today was supposed to be about unity. Why did Davis have to ruin everything? The program began with heartfelt speeches. Families shared memories of the farm, stories of laughter echoed through the barn, igniting a sense of nostalgia. Jake vowed to catalog these accounts into something tangible, a book depicting their history, a legacy worth preserving. As he took the stage, Jake's hands trembled, and the weight of the world hung on his words. "Thank you all for being here tonight. Your support means everything to me and my family. We're not just fundraising, we're revitalizing a dream, a home that holds our collective memories," he began, passion fueling his voice. Murmurs of encouragement chimed in the crowd, feeding his conviction. Then Davis stepped forward, interrupting before Jake could finish. "Nice speech, Jake, but I hear this farm is more of a liability than a treasure. And I wonder, are you really ready to steal from your family's legacy?" Gasps rippled through the audience. Jake's heart sank every eye turned to him, waiting for a reaction. "Davis," he snapped, anger surging. "This isn't yours to ruin." Before Davis could respond, the anonymous text pinged in his pocket again, the weight of it heavier than before. Images of betrayal danced in his mind. He had to confront Davis, to stand tall against the swirling chaos. "If anyone is going to ruin this evening, it's you," Jake declared, his voice steadier than he felt. "But I won't back down." Davis smirked. "We'll see about that, Jake." As the tension thickened, the lights flickered, plunging them into dark. A collective gasp filled the room, and panic surged like icy fire. Jake's heart raced. Was this part of Davis's plan? When the lights flickered back on, a figure stood at the entrance, cloaked in shadows. Uncertainty pulsed through Jake. Who was it? What twist awaited him next? His breath caught in his throat, the air electric with anticipation. The night could either shatter or reshape everything he held dear, and he couldn't help but wonder, was this unexpected visitor a savior or the final nail in his family's coffin? The figure stepped into the light, and Jake's heart sank further. It was Clara, his high school sweetheart, the girl he had never quite gotten over. She was bundled in a thick coat, but her eyes sparkled with a warmth that seemed to chase away the chill in the barn. The initial shock morphed into a cocktail of joy and anxiety. She stood there, holding a small box, gaze locked onto Jake's. Gasps filled the room again, but this time they were softer, more intrigued. Clara was not just any guest, she was a part of Jake's history, his present, and possibly, his future. "Clara?" he managed, feeling an unexpected wave of emotion swell in his chest. What was she doing here? It had been years since he last saw her, and now, at the peak of his chaos, there she stood, looking like a beacon of hope. "Jake, I came to help," she said, her voice cracking just a little. She stepped closer, and the warmth of her presence felt like a blanket in the cold barn. Before he could respond or savor the reunion, Davis erupted with laughter from the shadows. "This is rich. The ex shows up to rescue the day. What a plot twist." His voice dripped with sarcastic glee, and for a moment, Jake felt the suffocating weight of doubt come crashing back. "Shut up, Davis." Clara shot back, her tone fierce. The crowd murmured their support, and a flicker of unity washed over Jake. Her words ignited a spark that pushed him to remember why he was fighting so hard. "Clara," he said, taking a breath to steady himself. "What do you mean, you came to help?" She opened the box and held it up for everyone to see. Inside was an intricately crafted wooden item, a mini replica of the farm. "I've been working on this with my father," she explained. "We want to support you, Jake. The farm means something to so many of us, and we want to preserve that history, not let it go to waste. Cheers erupted around him as the crowd rallied behind her, their voices cutting through the tension like warm sunlight breaking through clouds, but just as Jake felt the tide turning, his phone vibrated again in his pocket. Another text, another reminder of the stakes hanging over them. This one felt urgent, more sinister. He hesitated, torn between the moment and the message, knowing full well that secrets could destroy all he was building. Jake? Clara stepped closer, concern etching her brows. What's wrong? And nothing, he stammered, trying to shake off the dread. It's just everything. Jake, Clara urged, taking his hand in hers. It was steady, firm, grounding him. You can trust me. Whatever's going on, we'll face it together. Her words breathed fresh air into his lungs. For a fleeting moment, Jake felt invincible. He scanned the barn, taking in the faces of those who had all gathered, ready to fight for the farm and for him. Just then, Davis stepped out of the shadows, a sneer plastered on his face again. You really think a sweet little gesture is going to save this place? Besides, don't you want to know who's been sending those texts? The air thickened. Everyone held their breath, the excitement morphing into tension again. Jake felt his jaw clench, but he faced Davis. If you have something to say, then spill it. Let's just say, this isn't over yet. Not by a long shot, Davis purred, his voice dripping with menace before he turned and strode away, his parting gaze promising turmoil. The room erupted into whispers and murmurs. Clara squeezed Jake's hand tighter. Whatever he's planning, we need to figure out what he knows. Jake's thoughts spiraled. Courage surged through him, mingling with palpable fear. We have to uncover the truth, he declared, glancing around the room. Together. Right now. As people began to talk amongst themselves, rallying support, Jake felt the magnitude of what lay ahead. The stakes were higher than he'd ever imagined, and the threat loomed larger now, but as Clara stood by his side, he felt hope and resolve blossom. Would they be able to expose Davis and save the farm? Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, they would face the chaos together. The real question lingered in the air. What truths was Davis hiding, and how deep did his schemes run? Clara's grip on Jake's hand felt like a lifeline. In the sea of whispers and growing anxiety, her presence steadied him. The barn still had that familiar scent of hay and old wood, but now it felt charged, like an electric current running through everyone present. The support of the crowd was a flame flickering to life, and with Clara beside him, Jake felt courage swell inside him. What's the plan? He asked, turning to Clara. He needed to harness the momentum. We can't let Davis intimidate us. If we expose whatever he's hiding, we can turn the tide. Clara nodded, determination glinting in her eyes. We gather information. Find out who's really behind the texts. There must be a connection, something he's not revealing. Jake's heart raced. The community needs to know. We have to bring everyone together. If Davis is using fear to manipulate us, we can counter it with unity. The room had filled with chatter now. Faces brightened, and small clusters formed as people shared ideas. Jake took a deep breath, his gaze slipping back to Clara. The softness in her expression was comforting, but behind that warmth lay an understanding that things could get messy. From the corner, he caught sight of Davis again, watching from the shadows, a silent predator waiting for his moment. Jake felt a surge of anger. He'd let fear grip him for too long. It was time to be proactive. Okay, everyone. Jake raised his voice above the din, cutting through the uncertainty. He stepped forward, feeling the electric buzz of anticipation steer the collective focus back toward him. We're going to come together to protect this farm. Davis thinks he can scare us into submission, but we want to let him win. Cheers erupted anew, louder this time. Clara's smile was infectious. She stepped up beside him, emboldened. We'll form committees, she suggested. People who know this land well can help collaborate on a plan. We can fight for what we love. A chorus of agreement rolled through the barn. Jake could feel the walls closing in around Davis, while hope bloomed more vibrantly than ever. But shadows still loomed. Somewhere out there, the truth was hidden, wrapped up in secrets that could topple their unity like a house of cards. Suddenly, amidst the excitement, Clara's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, her expression shifting to concern. "It's my dad," she murmured, stepping a few paces away to take the call. Jake watched her, mind racing. Could there be a connection between Clara's father and what they were up against? The notion sent his heart racing anew. Tension coiled in his gut, and he strained to listen, trying to catch snippets of her conversation. Every word felt like a puzzle piece. As she spoke, Clara's face paled. Panic flickered in her eyes, and her hand clutched the phone tightly. She took a quick step back toward Jake, breaking connection with the call. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, urgency bubbling just beneath the surface. Jake leaned in, breath hitching. "What is it?" "They're coming for the farm, and it's bigger than just Davis. My dad, he suspects it might be tied to something more than we've realized," she said, her eyes wide with fear. The air thickened again. The room felt impossibly small. If Davis was just a pawn in a much larger game, what did that mean for everything they fought for? Questions hung in the air like thick fog. "Clara," Jake began, but she interrupted. "I need to find answers. We need to figure this out together," she insisted, strength in each syllable. "We might be running out of time." A chilling realization struck him. This was about more than just a farm. This was about everything they stood for, their community frayed at the edges and vulnerable. They were running a race against time, and someone was lurking in the shadows ready to pounce. "Together," he echoed, the weight of her words grounding him. "Whatever it takes, we'll face this. But we need to move fast." He felt the heat of determination rising in him, a flame igniting with purpose as he met Clara's gaze. Their fates were intertwined. And the pull was undeniable. As people gathered around, drawn by their intensity, uncertainty mixed with hope was palpable. But the looming threat promised chaos on the horizon. What lay ahead depended on their next moves. Suddenly, a shout from the outside distracted everyone. "Hey! You won't believe who's just rolled into town." All eyes moved towards the door as the heavy wooden frame creaked open, anticipation electrifying the air once more. Who could it be, and how would they shake things up? The barn buzzed with curious energy, but Jake felt the weight of the unknown settle heavily on his shoulders. This night was far from over, and answers were lurking just outside. Jake's heart raced as he turned to face the open barn door. The dim light from the lanterns flickered against the dusk outside, barely illuminating the shadowy figure that stepped into view. As that figure moved closer, recognition ignited a spark of hope within him. "Is that?" Clara began, her voice trailing off as disbelief washed over her features. She stared wide-eyed at the newcomer, her shock mirrored by several others in the barn. It was Danny, Clara's estranged brother, returning after years away from the farm. Memories of childhood laughter and sibling rivalry flooded Clara's mind. But underneath her surprise lay a complex mix of emotions: joy, confusion, and a touch of resentment. "Clara!" "Jake!" Danny called out, his voice filled with excitement but edged with something more serious. "I heard what's going on. I had to come back. We need to talk." Before they could fully react, he pushed through the crowd, his hands outstretched as he shared greetings. Yet as he embraced Clara, Jake felt an unexpected pang of jealousy. There was a bond between them that Jake didn't quite understand. "Why now?" Clara asked, pulling back, her brow knit in concern. "You've been gone for so long. What do you know?" "I've been keeping tabs," Danny replied, his expression growing serious as he glanced around. "You're not just up against Davis. He's in the middle of something bigger, something that goes all the way up to the city council. I think they want to take not just the farm, but the whole lot of land. They're planning to develop it." Gasps erupted from the group gathered around. A cloud of trepidation hung heavy in the air. "Develop it?" Jake echoed, his voice rising. "Do you mean turn it into houses or shopping centers?" "That can't be right." Danny nodded. I know it sounds outlandish. But it's true. I've seen the plans. There's money involved, and that makes people ruthless. Davis is just their front man to scare everyone into submission. But it's deeper than that. Clara's eyes shone with tears, a mix of gratitude and apprehension. Why should we trust you, Danny? You disappeared from our lives. He looked contrite, the weight of his absence hanging between them. I messed up. I wasn't there when I should have been. But I'm here now, and I want to help. We're family. We fight together, right? The sentiment radiated through Clara, but a wall of skepticism still lingered. Jake could see her weighing her options, torn between reuniting with her brother and her unresolved feelings about his absence. Okay, Clara said tentatively. If you're serious, then let us figure this out. We can't let them take what's ours. Exactly, Jake jumped in, feeling a surge of unity. If this is about more than just the farm, we need to mobilize. We have to expose this plan before it's too late. As the tension shifted back towards action, Clara turned to the gathered crowd. We need everyone on board. Danny may have the information we need. Let us split into groups, those who know the land and those who can investigate what's happening in town. A wave of enthusiasm swept over the barn. Ideas sparked like fireworks in the night sky, with people speaking over each other, the air thick with possibility. But amidst the contagious energy, a pit of uncertainty tickled at the back of Jake's mind. Wait! Jake interjected, catching everyone's attention. Before we solidify any plans, we have to ensure we're safe. Davis might try to retaliate or intimidate us further. Clara nodded, remembering Davis's cold gaze from earlier, the way he'd linger like a shadow. Just then, a crack of thunder rattled outside. The skies darkened, and heavy drops of rain began to shower the barn's roof, mirroring the storm brewing within their own hearts. As the crowd mulled over their next steps, Jake spotted Davis lurking in the distance, catching his eye. The realization rippled through him. Threats might come from all directions, from both the known and the unknown. They were on the brink of something significant, and they needed to be ready. Let us get out there and gather more intel, Jake urged, pulling Clara close. We need to stand strong and act fast. Time isn't on our side. The audience held their breath, feeling the weight of the moment. But just as spirits seemed lifted, a distant rumble of engines broke through the storm's sound. A convoy of trucks appeared on the road outside, headlights piercing through the dark, approaching the farm. Who's that? Clara breathed, her face pale as dread washed over her. Jake's stomach flipped. The stakes had just escalated. The answer lay just beyond the barn door, and it was coming fast. The rumble of engines grew louder, cutting through the rain like an ominous warning. Jake's heart hammered in his chest as the headlights swept across the barn's interior, shadows dancing against the wooden walls. Clara's hand tightened on his arm, her eyes wide with fear. Jake, what if it's Davis? She whispered, fear creeping into her voice. I don't know, he replied, scanning the crowd. Concern was etched on everyone's faces. But we need to be ready for anything. Danny stepped forward, his expression steely. Everyone, stay calm. If they're coming, we need to be smart about this. Let us not show any weakness. Jake nodded, feeling a twinge of admiration for Danny, despite their complicated history. The situation was dire, and they couldn't afford to bicker over the past. Every second counted. The sound of heavy boots echoed as figures spilled from the trucks, rain slicking their dark uniforms. Jake's stomach twisted. These weren't just men passing through, they were here for a purpose. Murmurs rippled through the gathered crowd, who instinctively huddled closer together, bracing for confrontation. What should we do? Clara asked, her voice barely above the rising storm. Let us stay hidden for now. We need to hear what they're saying, Jake suggested, already moving towards a stack of hay bales. Clara, Danny, and a few others followed suit, kneeling low. They crouched, rain pounded against the roof, competing with the rustle of wind and the murmurs from outside. The tension in the air was so thick, it felt tangible. Tick-tock, every breath seemed to stretch and elongate, heavy with anticipation. The headlights fell on the gathering crowd of men. Davis stood among them, looking wealthier and more imposing than ever. His slicked-back hair glistened under the rain-soaked glow, and the power he exuded made Jake's skin crawl. "We're here to take what is ours," Davis's voice boomed, laced with disdain. "This land is ripe for development, and I don't care who stands in my way." "I knew it," Clara breathed, anger swelling in her chest. "He's going to try to take the whole place." Danny's jaw clenched. "We need proof. If we can gather evidence of what he's doing, we can fight back." Jake felt a surge of determination. "Let us get a closer look," he said, heart racing. Leaving the safety of the hay bales felt daunting, but the fire in his gut urged him forward. As he and Danny crept closer, they heard Davis give orders, handing out papers and maps, plans that would change their lives forever. "Tonight, we intimidate the remaining families. Either they sign, or we'll make it impossible for them to stay," Davis sneered, and Jake's blood boiled. Intimidation? "This isn't just about the land anymore," Jake whispered furiously to Clara, who was standing beside him. "It's about pushing people out of their home. We have to stop this." Suddenly, a noise broke through the night, a snapping twig underfoot. Jake's eyes widened, realizing they were no longer hidden. In an instant, heads turned towards their direction. "Who's there?" a voice barked, sending a jolt of panic through Jake. He pulled Clara closer, willing his heart to slow. With peril hanging in the air, the stakes were higher than ever. They couldn't just stand by. Fear brewed beneath the resolve of the group, and it was clear that the next move would determine everything. "Run!" Danny shouted, pushing them to safety, but as they scrambled back towards the barn, Jake felt the weight of the moment settle heavily on his shoulders. This was the point of no return. They were on the precipice of battle, and the darkness of the night didn't deter the light of hope shining within him. Yet, questions lingered. Would they gather enough evidence to confront Davis? Would their families be safe? As they dove back into the barn just in time, the thunder rolled once more, shaking the walls in a warning not just from nature, but from fate itself. What would they discover next, and would their fight mean more than just safeguarding their land? The barn door slammed shut behind them, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the tense air. Jake's pulse thumped loudly in his ears. He turned to Clara, searching her eyes for reassurance. Instead, he saw the same worry reflected back at him, the fear of the unknown gnawing at both of them. "Do you think they saw us?" Clara asked, her voice shaking slightly. "I don't know," he replied, glancing at Danny, who was already at the window, peering through a gap in the wood. The rain continued to fall, drumming a relentless beat on the roof. "We have to be quiet." They huddled together, breathless and alert. Outside, the voices of Davis and his men cut through the sound of the storm, growing more menacing. "We'll split up into teams," Davis was saying. "Some of you take the east side, the rest with me. We'll make sure every last family knows what's coming." A chill ran down Jake's spine. There was no mistaking it now. Davis was ready to make his move, and it wasn't going to be pretty. The stakes had jumped from fighting for their home to fighting for their very lives. "What do we do?" Clara whispered, fear evident in her voice. "We gather proof," Danny interjected, his voice steady even amidst the chaos. "We need to know exactly what he's planning. If we create a rallying point for the community, they won't be able to push us out easily." Jake nodded, feeling the tension shift slightly in the barn. Clara's eyes sparked with hope, feeding off Danny's conviction. "But how do we get out there without being seen?" she asked. "There's a side door," Jake said, glancing at the shadowy outline in the dim light. "We can slip out there, circle around. It'll be risky, but we can do it together. We're not going to let them split us up." With agreement shared among them, they moved as one towards the side door, Jake leading the way. His heart raced, not just with fear, but with the overwhelming weight of responsibility. He had to keep Clara and Danny safe. They pushed the door open slowly, wincing at the creak it made, but the sound blended with the storm. Once outside, they crouched low to the ground, edging towards the nearby trees. Each rustle in the wind had Jake on edge, but he steeled himself. This was fight or flight, and he chose to fight. "Hurry," Clara urged, darting ahead with Danny close behind. They reached the safety of the trees, panting heavily in the shelter of their branches. "Look!" Danny whispered, pointing towards the clearing ahead where the men were gathered, their lanterns casting flickering lights like fireflies against the night. Jake's throat tightened as he observed Davis spread out the maps on the hood of a truck, his men gathering closely. That's when he spotted a red folder sticking out from the pile, its corners framed with thick stacks of paper. Jake's throat went dry. If that folder contained anything related to their land, it could be the evidence they needed. "We need to get that folder," he said, determination hardening his resolve. "How?" Clara asked, glancing nervously at the men, who were now deep in conversation. "We distract them," Jake suggested. "Clara, can you create a noise over there?" He pointed towards a stack of old crates a little further away. "Are you crazy?" she replied, wide-eyed. "It's our only shot." "Just give me a second to get close," he insisted. As Clara nodded, Danny placed a steadying hand on Jake's shoulder. "We'll make it work. Just stay low." Jake could feel adrenaline pumping through him. This wasn't just about them anymore. Their entire community depended on their next move. With a final nod, Clara turned to dash away, leaving the two boys with their hearts in their throats. What if things went wrong? Would they have enough time? As they waited, a loud crash echoed, and Jake's eyes widened. "Now!" he shouted, feeling every nerve in his body electrify with urgency. But as he started to move, a shout from Davis's men broke through the air, and Jake froze. "Who's there?" One of the men fumbled, eyes narrowing, looking directly at their hiding place. Jake took a steadying breath. This was more than just a fight for land. It was a fight for everything they loved. Would Clara's distraction work? Would they escape the eyes of their enemies? In that moment of uncertainty, he knew one thing for sure: they were in this together, and whatever happened next would change everything. Clara's heart raced as she sprinted toward the crates, her mind focused on the task at hand. Shadows loomed around her, twisting in the rain-soaked darkness, but she couldn't let fear win. A few feet away, Jake and Danny were crouched low, anxiety radiating off them with every passing second. She glanced back at their hiding place, and she could see Davis's men moving restlessly, their voices blending with the relentless storm. She reached the crates, taking a deep breath before toppling one over. It crashed loudly to the ground, sending a spray of old wood and nails across the wet earth. The noise was deafening in the stillness that followed. Clara's heart skipped a beat as she heard the startled shouts from the men. "What was that?" one voice barked. She dove behind another stack of crates, forcing her breath to steady as she waited for Jake's signal. "Go!" Jake shouted from their hiding spot, and she wasted no time, darting across the clearing toward the truck where Davis was still assessing the maps. "Keep him busy," Jake hissed as Clara reached the edge of the truck. Danny was at her side now, adrenaline surging, his eyes locked on the folder that now seemed to glow amidst the chaos. Davis was distracted, shouting orders, but as Clara stole a glance back, she realized their cover was slipping. Jake drew in a deep breath and made a run for it, charging towards the truck as Clara and Danny followed close behind. Davis turned, eyes widening, as he caught sight of them. "There!" he shouted, pointing with an angry flourish. Before Jake could react, Clara flung herself forward, shoving Danny to grab the red folder. She could feel the weight of it in her hands, even as the men closed in around them, their footsteps echoing like thunder in her ears. "Run! Now!" Jake's voice pierced through the clamor, jolting her into action. They bolted back toward the safety of the trees, the folder clasped tightly against Clara's chest. She could hear the sounds of pursuit growing behind them, shouts and curses mixing with the whipping wind. "Faster!" Danny urged, his breath coming in quick bursts. As they plunged into the cover of the trees, Jake glanced back, panic flashing in his eyes. "We can't let them catch us." We have to split up. Clara hesitated, fear tightening her chest. No. Together. We stay together. But Jake's resolve was firm. We'll draw them away. Just meet back at the barn, okay? With one last look, he took off to the left, sprinting deeper into the woods, out of sight. Clara, go. Danny shouted, pulling her attention back. Without thinking, she nodded, trusting Jake's instincts. The two of them ducked low as they ran, heartbeats pounding as they wove through the tall trees. Every shadow felt ominous, every gust of wind a reminder of their perilous situation. Do you think they'll find us? Clara asked, breathless, fear gnawing at her insides. I don't know, Danny panted, glancing back. We just need to get to safety. Just then, Clara caught a glimpse of movement out of the corner of her eye. A group of figures emerged from the darkness, and panic surged through her. They were surrounded. Crate, Danny whispered, his eyes darting. Hide. They stumbled back behind the dense brush, pressing against the damp earth. Clara's heart sank as they peered through the leaves, watching helplessly as Davis and his men searched the opposite direction, their shouts echoing in the night. I don't understand what they want with us, Clara whispered, pulling the red folder close. They want our land, Danny whispered back. And they won't stop until they get it. Clara's determination ignited again. They had this folder, and with it, the chance to expose Davis's true intentions. She could feel an overwhelming wave of courage wash over her. What if we could rally everyone? Clara breathed. What if we could stand together, not just us? Danny's gaze was unwavering. Then we fight. For our families, for our home. As they crouched in the bushes, the cold rain pattering on the leaves, hope flickered between them. They weren't just hiding anymore, they were fighting for something bigger. Suddenly, a loud bark echoed through the night, a familiar sound that made her heart leap. Is that Danny's eyes widened? Copper! Clara exclaimed, the dog from their neighborhood rushing through the trees toward them, barking fiercely. Get down! Danny hissed, but Clara couldn't help but let a hopeful smile break through. Copper skidded to a stop, barking excitedly, his tail wagging. But they had a new kind of worry now. Would Davis and his men notice? Keep him quiet, Danny urged, placing a hand on Coppa's muzzle. As the storm continued to rage, the sound of the barking mingled with the patter of rain, echoing their urgency in that dark moment. Could the dog be the distraction they needed to make it back? The tension rose, a testament to the fight around the corner. Everything they loved depended on what happened next. Clara's heart thudded predictably in her chest. Were they destined to be heroes, or victims of a much larger game? And in the distance, the men were getting closer. Clara held her breath as she pressed against the damp earth, her heart hammering. Coppa's ferocious barking seemed to split the air, an unwelcome beacon in the darkness. She could hear the rustling of leaves, the crunch of twigs under heavy boots. Every sound sent a shiver down her spine. Shoo! She whispered urgently, scrambling to cover Coppa's mouth with her hands. Please, don't give us away. But the dog was excited, a bundle of energy unable to comprehend the dire situation. Clara's mind raced. They had to think fast, or they'd all be caught. She exchanged a glance with Danny, whose eyes widened with fear. Amidst the tension, something shifted. Clara felt a rush of determination swell within her. She leaned closer to Danny, her voice barely a whisper. If we could get Copper to lead them away, we might have a chance to escape. Danny furrowed his brow. What if he goes too far? What if they catch him? They won't catch him if we move fast. We need to be brave. Clara felt a fierce hope throbbing in her chest. We need to try. With a nod, Danny agreed, and together they formulated a plan. Clara gently pushed Copper away from her, cupping his face. Copper, go. She urged, pointing in the opposite direction of the approaching men. Go. The dog hesitated for a moment, confusion flickering in his eyes. Then, with a startled bark, he darted off into the trees, bounding through the underbrush like a streak of lightning. Clara and Danny didn't waste a second. They bolted from their hiding spot, sprinting in the opposite direction, the folder still clutched tightly against Clara's chest. The pounding of their feet on the soaked ground echoed like thunder in her ears. "Do you think it worked?" Danny gasped, trying to keep pace with her. "I hope so," Clara replied, glancing back nervously. The sounds of Copper's barking faded into the distance. They had to reach the barn, had to warn everyone before it was too late. As they navigated through the trees, the rain seemed to intensify, pouring down like a curtain, veiling their escape. Clara's heart thrummed, each beat reminding her of the urgency. More than the folder, more than their lives, her family's home was at stake. Suddenly, Clara stopped dead in her tracks. In the distance, a flicker of light cut through the dark. It was the barn. A wave of relief washed over her. "We can make it," she shouted, and Danny nodded, his face set with resolve. "Just a little further," he urged, and they charged ahead, darting past the trees, adrenaline propelling them forward. But then came the piercing shout. "There they are!" Clara's stomach dropped. Davis's men had seen them. "Run!" Danny yelled, pulling Clara along as they sprinted toward the flickering light, but the sounds of pursuit closed in around them like a storm. With her lungs burning, Clara pushed on, feeling the weight of the folder heavy against her chest. It wasn't just paper, it was their lifeline. The truth that could save them all. They stumbled into the clearing outside the barn, rain-soaked and desperate. Clara scanned the surroundings, looking for a place to hide or someone to call out to. The barn door hung ajar, a shadow flickering inside. "Get inside," she urged, and they dove through the entrance, the smell of hay and damp wood enveloping them. "Do you think they'll follow?" Danny whispered, panic rising in his voice. Clara shook her head, trying to catch her breath. "We need to find out who's here. We can't face them alone." As they stood in the gloom, the door creaked, and Clara's heart skipped. Footsteps echoed outside, and she realized they had only moments to prepare. Would they find safety among friends, or was this just another trap? Hope and fear danced in her chest as they waited, unsure of what waited just beyond the door. Who would answer when the storm settled and the truth finally came crashing down? As the barn door creaked open, Clara and Danny braced themselves. Davis's men were relentless, and they couldn't assume safety just yet. But as the heavy rain pounded against the wooden walls, Jake's voice rang out like a lifeline from the shadows inside. "Clara. Danny. Is that you?" Relief surged through Clara, prompting her to rush towards the sound as she and Danny stepped into the warm glow of the barn. The space felt alive with energy, a gathering of their friends and family huddled together, murmurs of tension mixing with whispers of concern. The red folder slipped from Clara's grasp and landed heavily on a nearby hay bale. Jake stepped forward, an anxious look on his face. "What happened?" "We saw there's no time." Danny interrupted, breathless. "Davis is working with city officials. They want to develop the land, and we need to expose him before it's too late." Clara nodded, her heart pounding. "This folder has plans detailing the development scheme. It's all right here." From across the barn, voices rose in alarm and disbelief. Families exchanged worried glances, but amidst the fear lay a glimmer of determination. Jake picked up the folder, and as he flipped through the pages, hope glinted in his eyes. "We can use this. We can turn the tide." There was a surge of energy among them, a sense of unity that had been missing since the night began. "If we rally everyone, we can stand strong against Davis," Clara said, her voice gaining confidence. "This is about our homes, our legacy." "Yes. We can organize a meeting to share this information with everyone," Jake declared, a fire igniting in him. "If they know the truth, they will want to fight." The room buzzed with excitement as thoughts bounced around, a community coming together to protect their way of life. Clara could see the planning begin amongst familiar faces, fueled by passion and commitment to the land they loved. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the barn door, and it swung wide open, revealing Davis's men, their faces twisted in contempt. "You think you can take us on?" You're weak. Davis sneered, his voice dripping with scorn. Jake stepped forward, his stance firm. No, we're not weak. We're together. With that, the families stepped up, side by side with Jake, Clara, and Danny at the front. It was a powerful sight, community members standing united, eyes blazing with resolve. Davis faltered, seeing the sheer unity before him. It was brave, it was emotional, and Clara's heart swelled with pride. You're outnumbered, Davis, she said, trying to quell her trembling fear. They'll see the money before they see your nostalgia. You won't stand a chance. He shot back, but his voice wavered slightly. That's where you're wrong, Jake replied, his voice steady and strong. We're not just fighting for memories. We're fighting for families and a future. With that, Clara felt hope press in again, rallying around them like a comforting embrace. Just then, the town came alive beyond the barn. Vehicles rolled in, neighbors arriving, curious and ready to listen. Gather around, everyone. Jake called out, and the murmur of the crowd grew louder as people stepped into the barn, drawn by the energy inside. Clara watched as familiar faces appeared, groups she had grown up with, friends of the family, and even those she had once felt distant from. They could see the papers in Jake's hands, evidence of the fight ahead, and solidarity swept through the barn. This is our land. A voice rang out from the crowd, igniting the collective spirit. Each face lit up with determination, every heart united under the shared cause. Later, as the gathering transformed into a rally, Clara stood beside Jake. Their hands linked tightly together, an unspoken promise to face whatever lay ahead as one. Danny spoke at the front, fueled by the shared enthusiasm of the others, the truth spilling out in urgent tones. But we need a plan, he said, looking intently at everyone. We need to get these documents to the council and reveal Davis's deception. And just like that, the atmosphere shifted. It was no longer a gathering of worry, but a movement of change. Families mobilized, demonstrating that they wouldn't back down, they would fight, together. In the end, as the last words of encouragement lingered in the space, Clara suddenly felt tears prick at her eyes, but this time, they were tears of hope. She looked at Jake, whose radiant smile mirrored the strength of their community, and kissed him softly. In that moment, it became clear they would rise against this storm together. It was a new beginning, and they would preserve what truly mattered: their legacy, their love, and their home. And just like that, the flickering lights of the barn cast a warm, unwavering glow against the chaos outside, a beacon of unity ready to face the dark. Clara raised her voice over the buzz, inviting people to surround them in a circle. Together, we stand. Together. The community echoed back, a powerful collective chant that resonated with hope. Now was the time to act, and this community would rise, united, against any storm. As Clara held Jake's hand tighter, she felt an unwavering sense of purpose. They had a fight ahead, but for the first time, all the shadows of uncertainty lifted. This was their moment, one they would share together. Join this movement for change and stand strong with us. You need to subscribe now to catch all the following chapters of this inspiring journey. Leave a like now to shine a light on our cause and help us reach others fighting too. Comment below your own experiences of standing up together, and don't wait not even one more second to share this message with 5 friends who need to feel this strength. We are the difference. Let us do this.